Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we are not talking about a monster born from hatred. We are talking about a curse born from love. This is the story of Yuta Okkotsu, a boy who never wanted power, never asked to be feared, and yet carries one of the most terrifying forces the Jujutsu world has ever known. Before Yuta Okkotsu was labeled a prodigy, before he was recognized as a special grade sorcerer, he was just a quiet child who loved someone too deeply. Yuta's life changed the day Rika Orimoto died. Yuta Okkotsu's story does not begin with ambition, rivalry, or the hunger to become strong. It begins with something far more fragile, and far more dangerous: love. Before the Jujutsu world ever spoke his name with fear or respect, Yuta was simply a gentle, soft-spoken child whose greatest strength was his kindness. He was not born into a legendary clan obsessed with power. He was not trained from childhood to fight curses. He did not dream of becoming a sorcerer. His tragedy is that his heart was too big for the world he lived in. Yuta's bond with Rika Orimoto was pure in the way only childhood connections can be. They promised each other a future without understanding what the future truly meant. There was no curse, no malice, no darkness in that promise, just innocence. But when Rika died suddenly and violently, that innocence was shattered beyond repair. For most people, grief fades into memory. For Yuta, grief became a prison that reality itself could not contain. In that moment of overwhelming loss, Yuta did something no normal human should ever be capable of doing. Without knowledge, without intent, without control, he used cursed energy on a level that even experienced sorcerers struggle to reach. Not because he wanted power, but because he could not accept goodbye. His love became a binding vow, and his sorrow became an anchor that chained Rika's soul to the living world. What emerged was not simply a curse. It was a manifestation of pure emotional force, raw and limitless. This is the cruel irony of Yuta Okkotsu. His greatest curse was created by his greatest virtue. Rika was not born from hatred or rage like most curses. She was born from protection, from devotion, from the desperate wish to never be alone again. And because of that, she was monstrously powerful. Not chaotic like a mindless curse, but obsessively protective, responding to any perceived threat against Yuta with overwhelming violence. To the outside world, Yuta looked weak, frail, afraid, but the truth was far more terrifying. He was a human walking beside a disaster he did not understand and could not control. Wherever he went, danger followed, not because he sought it, but because his existence disrupted the balance of the Jujutsu world itself. Rika lashed out instinctively, injuring classmates, destroying surroundings, and spreading fear among both sorcerers and civilians. Yuta did not feel pride in this power. He felt guilt, crushing, constant guilt. Every injury caused by Rika felt like blood on his hands. Every frightened stare confirmed his deepest fear, that he was a monster pretending to be human. This is what separates Yuta from traditional prodigies. Others chase strength and slowly lose their humanity. Yuta started with humanity and feared the strength growing inside him. When Jujutsu elders labeled him a special grade curse user, it was not an honor. It was a death sentence waiting to happen. He was isolated, monitored, and quietly debated as a liability that might need to be eliminated. Even then, Yuta did not resist. He believed the world would be safer without him. That belief, that his existence itself was a mistake, became the emotional core of his character. What makes Yuta's origin truly tragic is that he never asked to be chosen. He never trained to inherit power. He never sought to surpass others. His curse found him because he loved someone deeply and could not let go. In a world where power often comes from obsession with strength, Yuta's power came from attachment. And attachment, in the Jujutsu world, is dangerous. Yet despite the terror surrounding him, Yuta never lost his compassion. Even as classmates feared him, he feared himself more. He avoided others not out of arrogance, but out of concern. He would rather suffer alone than risk hurting someone else. This mindset shaped his entire journey. Unlike sorcerers who view curses as tools or weapons, Yuta saw his power as a responsibility he did not deserve. Rika, for all her destructive potential, mirrored Yuta's emotional state. She was not evil, she was loyal to the point of madness. Her violence was not cruelty, it was devotion taken to an extreme. She existed only for Yuta, and that dependency made her unstoppable. The more Yuta feared harming others, the more fiercely Rika reacted to perceived threats. Love fed the curse, and the curse fed the fear. This dynamic is what makes Yuta's story so compelling in anime terms. He represents the terrifying question at the heart of many Japanese stories: what happens when pure emotions collide with supernatural power? Yuta shows that even the most beautiful feelings can become catastrophic when amplified beyond human limits. He is proof that power itself is neutral, it is the heart behind it that determines its shape. Yuta's early life as a sorcerer is not about mastering techniques or defeating enemies. It is about learning to exist without destroying everything around him. Every step forward requires confronting his own emotions, not suppressing them. He must accept that Rika is both his curse and his responsibility. Running away only makes her stronger. Denying his feelings only deepens the damage. At the core of Yuta Okkotsu's origin is a painful truth: he is not cursed because he is weak. He is cursed because he is human. His empathy, his fear, his love, these are the things that gave birth to his overwhelming power. And that is why the Jujutsu world fears him. Not because he seeks destruction, but because his strength has no ceiling as long as his emotions remain unresolved. In a world filled with sorcerers who harden their hearts to survive, Yuta stands out as someone who refuses to abandon his humanity, even when it terrifies him. His story reminds us that the most dangerous power is not rage or ambition, but love without limits. And that is why Yuta Okkotsu is not just a cursed prodigy, he is a living contradiction, walking the thin line between salvation and catastrophe. Yuta Okkotsu's true awakening does not come from learning how to fight, it comes from realizing that power without control is just another form of fear. After entering the Jujutsu world, Yuta is thrown into an environment where strength is everything, yet he possesses strength so overwhelming that it isolates him. While other students train to grow stronger, Yuta trains to survive his own existence. This reversal defines his journey as a prodigy unlike any other. At first, Yuta cannot even stand properly in battle. His body reacts before his mind can keep up. Rika moves on instinct, unleashing devastating force whenever Yuta feels threatened. This makes every encounter dangerous, not just for enemies, but for allies as well. The fear in Yuta's eyes is not of dying, but of losing control. He is constantly aware that one wrong emotional surge could turn the battlefield into a massacre. This awareness weighs on him far more heavily than physical injury ever could. What sets Yuta apart during this phase is how quickly he begins to understand the nature of cursed energy. Unlike sorcerers, who rely on rigid training and repetition, Yuta learns intuitively. His emotions flow directly into his cursed energy, shaping it in real time. This allows him to adapt faster than expected, but it also makes him unstable. Every doubt, every hesitation, every moment of self-loathing directly affects his power output. In anime terms, his growth is not linear, it spikes and collapses based on his mental state. As Yuta trains, he begins to realize that cursed energy responds to acceptance, not suppression. The more he tries to deny Rika, the more violently she manifests. This realization is a turning point. Instead of treating Rika as a separate monster, Yuta starts to see her as an extension of himself, born from his own heart. This shift does not weaken her. It refines her. Her attacks become more precise, less chaotic. The battlefield stops reacting to panic and starts responding to intent. Through this process, Yuta learns an essential lesson of the Jujutsu world: true control does not come from domination, but from understanding. He stops fighting his emotions and begins to carry them. His fear transforms into caution. His guilt becomes responsibility. His love becomes resolve. This emotional evolution is what allows Yuta to access techniques that should be impossible for someone so inexperienced. One of the most frightening aspects of Yuta's power is his ability to copy techniques. Unlike imitation through study, Yuta's replication feels instinctive, as if his cursed energy understands other techniques at a fundamental level. This suggests that his potential is not limited by lineage or training, but by imagination and emotional clarity. Every technique he witnesses becomes a possibility. Every enemy becomes a lesson. This ability makes him unpredictable, and unpredictability is what terrifies veteran sorcerers the most. Despite this explosive growth, Yuta never loses his sense of vulnerability. He does not view battles as opportunities to prove dominance. Every fight feels like a test of restraint. Victory is not about defeating the opponent, it is about ending the conflict without losing himself. This mindset places him in direct contrast with traditional anime power fantasies. Yuta's strength is not about overwhelming others, it is about not being overwhelmed by himself. As he grows, others begin to notice the shift. Allies stop seeing him as a ticking bomb and start seeing him as a shield. His presence becomes stabilizing rather than destructive. Rika, once a symbol of uncontrollable terror, becomes a manifestation of protection. This evolution highlights one of the most powerful themes in Japanese anime, the transformation of trauma into purpose. Yet, even at this stage, Yuta remains incomplete. His power continues to expand faster than his understanding of it. He is still learning the cost of wielding such overwhelming ability. Every technique copied, every battle won, pulls him closer to a question he cannot yet answer. What happens when someone with no hunger for power becomes the strongest in the room? Yuta's second phase is not about reaching his peak. It is about laying the foundation for something far more dangerous and far more inspiring. He is learning that strength does not erase fear, it coexists with it. And in that balance between terror and resolve, Yuta Okkotsu begins to transform from a cursed child into a true sorcerer, one whose power grows not from ambition, but from acceptance. Yuta Okkotsu's greatest evolution begins when his power stops being about survival and starts becoming about choice. Up until this point, everything he has done has been reactive, responding to danger, fear, or responsibility forced upon him. The third phase of his journey is where Yuta finally steps into agency. He is no longer just enduring the Jujutsu world, he is deciding how he will exist within it. This is where his untold power truly becomes terrifying. What separates Yuta from other prodigies in Japanese anime is that he never seeks domination. When his strength reaches a level comparable to special-grade sorcerers, the natural expectation would be arrogance or hunger for recognition. Instead, Yuta grows quieter. His silence is not weakness, it is awareness. He understands that every action he takes can alter lives, environments, and destinies. This awareness makes him more dangerous than any reckless powerhouse. In battle, this shift is immediately visible. Yuta stops relying purely on overwhelming force and begins to fight with intent. His movements are efficient, calculated, and emotionally grounded. He does not waste cursed energy to intimidate. He uses exactly what is needed, when it is needed. This precision makes his presence suffocating to enemies. They realize quickly that he is not testing them, he is judging whether they need to be stopped at all. Rika's role changes dramatically during this phase. She is no longer an uncontrolled guardian reacting to Yuta's fear. She becomes an extension of his will. Their synchronization reaches a level where commands are unnecessary. Emotion, intention, and action align instantly. This bond reflects one of anime's most powerful ideas. True strength is born when bonds are acknowledged rather than exploited. Rika is not chained to Yuta. She chooses him, and that choice amplifies both of them. This stage also reveals Yuta's moral depth. Unlike characters who draw clear lines between good and evil, Yuta understands nuance. He recognizes that curses are born from human emotion, pain, and regret. This understanding gives him empathy, even toward enemies. But empathy does not make him hesitant. When Yuta decides to fight, he does so with absolute commitment. His mercy exists before the battle, not during it. Another defining aspect of this keynote is how others perceive Yuta. Sorcerers no longer see him as a student or even a prodigy. They see him as a stabilizing force, someone whose presence changes the balance of power without announcing it. He does not demand authority, yet authority naturally forms around him. This quiet leadership is rare in anime, where strength is often loud. Yuta proves that silence can be heavier than any battle cry. Internally, Yuta still carries fear, but it no longer controls him. Instead of asking, "What if I lose control?" he begins asking, "What is the right outcome?" This shift marks his maturity as a sorcerer. His decisions are no longer driven by guilt or self-hatred, but by responsibility. He understands that being strong means being accountable, not just for victories, but for consequences. This phase cements Yuta as a character who breaks traditional power scaling. His strength cannot be measured purely in techniques or cursed energy output. It is measured in restraint, judgment, and emotional intelligence. In a world where power often corrupts, Yuta's power clarifies. It sharpens his humanity instead of erasing it. By the end of this stage, Yuta Okkotsu is no longer defined by Rika, tragedy, or fear. He is defined by choice. And that is what makes his untold power so unsettling. Because a sorcerer who chooses to fight, not because he must, but because he believes it is right, is far more dangerous than one who fights for pride, rage, or glory. The final stage of Yuta Okkotsu's journey reveals the most unsettling truth about his power. It is not his cursed energy, his techniques, or even Rika that define him, it is what he represents to the future of the Jujutsu world. By this point, Yuta is no longer just a prodigy or a weapon. He becomes a symbol, and symbols, especially in Japanese anime storytelling, are more powerful than any single character. Yuta stands at a crossroads between eras. He is proof that overwhelming power does not have to lead to tyranny, madness, or isolation. In a world shaped by figures like Gojo and Sukuna, beings who exist at the extremes of freedom and destruction, Yuta represents balance. He is neither detached from humanity nor consumed by it. This balance positions him as something rare, a future where strength and empathy can coexist without contradiction. What makes this stage truly significant is how the world begins to respond to Yuta's existence. Curses sense him differently, sorcerers measure themselves differently, even the systems that govern Jujutsu society quietly adjust around him. Rules that once existed to suppress potential begin to feel outdated in his presence. Yuta doesn't challenge the system openly, but his very survival disproves its fears. He is living evidence that power can be guided rather than controlled. This keynote also explores the idea of succession. Yuta is not meant to replace legends, he is meant to redefine what legends look like. He doesn't inspire followers through fear or awe, but through reassurance. Others feel safer knowing he exists. That alone separates him from nearly every top-tier character in anime, where strength often inspires either worship or terror. Yuta inspires trust. Rika's evolution reaches its quiet conclusion here. Her role is no longer tragic or monstrous. She becomes symbolic of Yuta's acceptance of his past. He does not erase her or cling to her, he carries her with him as memory, not burden. This reflects one of anime's deepest themes. True growth comes not from forgetting pain, but from integrating it into who you are. Rika is no longer a curse haunting him, she is a foundation beneath him. Yuta's future potential is intentionally left open, and that ambiguity is crucial. The story does not frame him as an inevitable ruler or final answer. Instead, it presents him as a question: what happens when someone with limitless power chooses restraint over domination? That question alone makes him more frightening to villains and more hopeful to allies than any declared king or god. Emotionally, Yuta reaches a state of quiet resolve. He no longer seeks validation from mentors, peers, or himself. His confidence is internal, stable, and unshakable. This emotional maturity is what allows him to stand among monsters without becoming one. In anime terms, this is the rarest evolution of all, power that does not demand escalation. In the end, Yuta Okkotsu's untold power is not about how hard he can hit, how many techniques he can copy, or how terrifying Rika can become. His true power lies in the future he makes possible, a future where strength protects instead of dominates, where tragedy creates guardians, not tyrants, where the most dangerous sorcerer in the room is also the most human. And that is why Yuta is not just a cursed prodigy. He is the quiet promise that the Jujutsu world might finally survive its own power.